All right, welcome to This Explainer. We're about to dive into something that really challenges how we think about evolution, and maybe even the future of human consciousness. This whole thing questions the basic story we're told about how species change and what might be next for us. So let's just jump right in with this really interesting observation from the source material. You look at animals, right? A horse can get stronger, a zebra can adapt to a different climate, but they're always a horse, and they're always a zebra. They adapt, for sure, but they stay within their own type. They never just cross over and become a different species.
And that simple observation kind of makes you stop and think, doesn't it? If we don't really see these big transitions happening, does that mean the conventional story of evolution we all learned is, incomplete? Is there a huge piece of the puzzle missing here? Okay, so to even begin to answer that, we've got to look beyond the surface. The argument here is that there are these subtle, almost invisible forces that are always at work driving changes within a species. They're kind of preparing the ground for those bigger leaps.
And the source breaks these forces down into three big categories, and each one gets a little more mysterious. First, you've got your physical forces, then these invisible life forces, and finally, the most strange of all, obscure psychological forces. All right, let's start with the physical stuff, which is way more powerful than you might think. Take food. It's not just fuel. There's something called epigenetics. What we eat can literally flip switches on our genes, changing how our bodies behave. And then there's light. The light you're exposed to affects your melanin, and that's directly tied into how tough and responsive your entire nervous system is. Crazy, right?
Then we get into these invisible life forces. This is stuff like, think about how major stress in one generation can actually leave an imprint that gets passed down, kind of pre-wiring the next generation to handle things differently. Or, the actual vibe of a place. The energy in Silicon Valley that just screams innovation is totally different from the chill, relaxed vibe of a tropical island. That ambient energy genuinely shapes the minds of the people living there.
But the real mystery, the forces that are the most powerful and the hardest to pin down, are what the source calls these obscure psychological forces.
And here's how they work, which is so interesting. They're almost like these collective moods, these waves of fashion that just sweep over an entire civilization. For a whole era, a culture might decide that wisdom and knowledge are the absolute most important things. Then, almost out of nowhere, the focus just shifts, and suddenly it's all about wealth. And then maybe after that, it's all about art and creativity. These huge shifts happen for reasons that aren't obvious at all, but they completely change the direction of a society. So, with all these different forces pulling and pushing on us, where does that leave humanity in this big picture?
Well, according to this perspective, humanity isn't some ultimate end goal of evolution. We're a type, just like any other animal. But we are the most complex type. We have the richest, most detailed, most intricate form of consciousness on the entire planet.
And this leads to a really cool concept called Swadharma. Basically, it's the idea that every single type of being, a fish, a bird, you, me, has its own built-in law of its being. It's the unique path that leads that specific type to its own version of perfection.
So what's our Swadharma? What's the human path? It's to be a mental being. Our job is to perfect ourselves within the limits of what it means to be human. It's all about fulfilling our mental potential, not necessarily trying to leap out of our own skin.
But, hang on. This brings up a massive problem, right? If our whole purpose is to perfect ourselves as humans, then what about that dream of evolving beyond our current limits? Does that mean becoming some kind of Superman is impossible? Is it a dead end?
And this is where the whole argument takes a really fascinating turn. It reveals a sort of hidden mechanism, a loophole you could say, that might just allow for that next great evolutionary jump.
And here's the secret. The whole human race doesn't evolve all at once. Instead, it happens when a few individuals kind of detach themselves from the herd, from the collective, to become the first foundation for a totally new way of being.
It's a really powerful way to think about it. The entire species of apes didn't slowly turn into humans, right? No, a small group broke away. They experienced this rapid acceleration, unlocked the power of the mind, and became the seed for all of humanity.
So that just begs the question, could that exact same process be happening right now? Could there be a few humans today pushing the limits who are laying the groundwork for a new supermental species to emerge right from our own?
So what's the tool? How do you make that leap from our logical, thinking mind to this higher, supermental consciousness? The answer given is a power we actually all have, but very few of us have truly mastered. And that is
intuition. And we're not just talking about a vague gut feeling here. Look at this incredible example of a master swordsman. Through pure intuition, he becomes one with his sword, one with his enemy's thoughts, and, get this, one with a bullet being fired at him. He can move his sword to slice it in half in midair. That's something the rational mind literally cannot process fast enough. It's biologically impossible through thought alone.
And that is the power of intuition. It's a type of consciousness that works faster than thought. It lets us see things and do things that completely blow past our normal biological and mental limits.
So this capacity for deep intuition, this is the potential that's sleeping inside humanity. It's what could allow certain people to become that first foundation for whatever comes next in evolution.
And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. If intuition is the real bridge to a higher consciousness, the paths to the next step for life on this planet, are you ready to cross it?